So Return of the Jedi is actually a movie I've changed my opinion on a few times over the years. By the way, like I've said in the other videos, there's going to be spoilers here for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, so fair warning. Now, when I was a kid, I loved Return of the Jedi, but when I got older, there were some things I found I really didn't like about it, and since I've gone back and recently watched it, I found the things that I had a problem with didn't really bother me as much as they used to. That doesn't mean I don't think the movie has its flaws, I think it does, but there's also some things that I think the movie does well. I'll start with the beginning of the movie with rescuing Han Solo. I really enjoyed this first part of the movie with Jabba the Hutt. I like Jabba's palace, I like the characters in it. I mean, this just seems like it would be a party all the time. I mean, this is, okay, well that's not for me, but the rest of it is pretty awesome. But I have to say, in terms of the plan to save Han, I've always wondered what the actual plan was. Was it part of the plan to have Leia get captured? What would have happened if Leia managed to escape with Han? Then wouldn't they have to go back and get R2-D2, C-3PO, and Chewbacca? What about Luke taking the gun? Was this part of the plan? What would have happened if when Luke took the gun, the guard didn't stop him? Would he have just shot Jabba in the face, and then what? Get shot by everyone else inside with a gun? I mean, he has no lightsaber to defend himself against any shots. It's stored inside R2-D2 at this point. Even still, it doesn't ruin the movie for me at all. They're just some things I've always wondered. I've also recently noticed that the deaths in the Sarlacc scene are some of the darkest in the original trilogy, at least. The most being Jabba's, and I'm not talking about the lighting. It's not a bad thing, and I guess I've never really thought about it before, but when you think about all the ways people have died in Star Wars, getting shot, blown up, thrown down a giant chasm, the first 30 minutes of this movie features people getting eaten alive by a giant monster, getting dragged into a pit and swallowed where they're going to be digested for over 1,000 years, and Jabba being strangled to death. I also think it's a very appropriate way for Jabba to die, having Leia kill him with the very chain he enslaved her with. Again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. They got a little edgier here. I like it. It's gritty. By the way, I just wanted to mention this guy really sucks. I also like the callback here to A New Hope with the swing. Now, I can see why people don't like the Ewoks. I could make the argument that the Star Wars movies were originally intended for kids and that the Ewoks are for them, but there's another point of view that I found that's pretty interesting. Now, this comes from the actor Sam Witwer. He explains his whole perspective on the Ewoks in a video you should really check out. I'll post the link in the description, but I'll kind of summarize what he says here, and to be honest, a lot of it makes sense to me. In The Empire Strikes Back, Luke learned a lesson when he found Yoda. It was not to underestimate one's power because of their appearance. When Luke landed on Dagobah, it didn't even cross his mind that this little creature could be the Jedi Master he was looking for. In Return of the Jedi, the same lesson is taught with the Ewoks. No one could expect that these little teddy bear aliens would help defeat the Empire. I mean, they're no Jedis, that's for sure, but when push came to shove, they made it work. They put up a fight no one was expecting. And when the rebels encountered the Ewoks on Endor, it appears that Luke actually realizes this because he experienced it with Yoda. So whether or not you like the Ewoks, I can understand both sides of it. Could the movie have been better? Sure. But I think as a whole, the movie kind of suffers from having to follow The Empire Strikes Back, because that movie set the bar so high. I mean, this battle is okay, but there's no way it compares to this. The space battle in Return of the Jedi is alright as well, but I can't help but feel it lacks the intensity of the first attack on the Death Star. I mean, everything is bigger in this battle. There's more ships, more fighters, the Death Star is bigger, but that doesn't necessarily make it better. In A New Hope, the attack on the Death Star was intense because look at the situation that they're in. You've got to fly through this trench, so it's a confined space, while being chased and shot at. And then you have to find that small exhaust port, the kink in the armor, so to speak. Add in the idea of the ticking clock as the Death Star is getting closer and closer to being in range of destroying the rebel base, and that all helps to build the suspense. But this is just basically fighting and waiting until the shield is down. I would argue that most of the suspense from this sequence comes from maneuvering through the Death Star. Another reason why I like Return of the Jedi is Vader's redemption. In The Empire Strikes Back, we only really knew Vader as the evil Sith Lord who killed Obi-Wan Kenobi and wants to destroy the rebels. It's not until the end of that movie when he's revealed as Luke's father that there's a new dynamic added to the character. In Return of the Jedi, we see more sides of Vader. We see a more human side of Vader, we see him wounded, we see him very conflicted, and ultimately, we see him choose good over evil. I don't love everything about the movie, but I definitely don't hate it either. Sure, the attack on the Death Star feels a little familiar, but it's still a really cool space battle to watch. I still enjoy the movie for what it is, and the things I don't enjoy as much ultimately don't ruin the movie for me at all. As for all the changes George Lucas has made over the years, well, I've got a lot to say about those, but hey, I gotta save some material for the next Star Wars week. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the original trilogy for Star Wars week this year. Coming up is going to be my review of the Star Wars Holiday Special, which I know you've all been looking forward to, and I've just been dreading.